This is my sketch illustration of a saber-toothed tiger, and today I'm going to teach you each and every single step so that you could draw this yourself. So grab a pencil and paper and let's get started. Welcome back everyone, and thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited about today's lesson because I love drawing big cats, especially ones that come from the prehistoric era. I'm going to start with a basic set of guidelines and start layering the details as we go. And for today's lesson, I'll start off with this 0.7mm mechanical pencil with a 2B graphite stick. Now if you don't have a mechanical pencil, anything you have around the house will work just fine. Let's begin by sketching a line coming down the center of a page. We're going to start at the very top in the middle. It's going to lightly work our way down towards the bottom. Just using these short lines, just pulling the pencil down towards us. Now let's go back to the center. We're going to draw another line going across from left to right. Let's use these two lines to help us create a large circle in the center of a page to define the size of the head. So from the center point, we're just going to move up to the top, mark off the top of our circle, and then we want to measure this distance from the center down towards the bottom, and we'll do the same thing across this horizontal line. So measuring the distance from the center over towards the left, and then over towards the right. And then we'll connect the center point of each mark with a curve to create our circle. Now start with the top left, and just roughly working our way around. And the circle doesn't have to be perfect, we're just using this as a guide. So just go around to smooth this out as best we can. Now with our circle and guidelines in place, let's start blocking out the key facial features and the geometry of the head. So let's split the top half of our circle right in half. I'm going to start with a straight line in the middle. Let's extend this out toward the left and right side. Now with this drawing, I just want to rotate it slightly so we get a little bit of perspective to the head. So the center of the face is not going to be on the left side of our circle, but rather we're just going to pull this into right about here. Just mark that off. And then here, we're just going to curve this up and then in towards the top of our circle. So we're just tapering this up toward the top. And now right from here, it's going to draw a straight line coming all the way down towards the bottom. And this will become the center point of the head, in between the eyes. Let's connect this point right here to the left side of our circle with a curve. Just going to curve the muzzle going out and then down. Let's go over towards the left side, bend this out and then down along the outside of the head. Now the nose is going to sit from this point. So just going to angle this up toward the left and right side. Now that line on the right is going to be a little bit longer because it's pulled towards us. From the ends, bend this down and then in. Let's go back up to the top. From this point, we're just going to bend this across and pull that down to right about here. And then from here, it's going to bend the eye, going up and then in toward that center line. Let's push out the brow. From here, bend this up towards the top, curve this up and then in toward the top of the head. Now I want to continue this curve going all the way across towards the right side of our page. So we're just blending this in toward the top of the neck. Let's go back to the brow right in here and draw a circle, just overlapping the eyelid. Something for the iris. And then over on the left side, draw a small circle for the pupil. Let's go back to the side of the muzzle. I'm just going to bend this around and then in, just pulling this in just underneath the tip of the nose. And draw a straight line going all the way across towards the right side of our circle. Now I want to open up the jaw. From this point, I'm just going to bend this across and then down towards the outside edge of our circle, and then come straight down towards the bottom of the mouth. Let's draw a straight line coming back in towards that center line. Now I want to duplicate this curve and this line along the back side of the mouth. So we're going to start up here, bend this in, and then down, and then come down the middle. Let's round out the chin, pull this down towards the right, and then pull that all the way up towards the bottom of our circle. Now it's going to block in the ear just pulled over towards the right. So starting up here, angle this back, curve this down, and then in. Let's draw the ear along the back side of the head. Drawing the same angle line toward the center, and then curving that down. Now I'm going to add a guideline for the fur going around the jaw, coming back up underneath the head. So I'll start underneath the ear, going all the way around. Pull that in towards the jaw. Let's continue this up towards the top along the back side. And then underneath the fur, let's angle the body, coming down and out. Now I'm going to go back to the tip of the nose right here, bend this up, it's an angled line, go around the outside of the muzzle, and then back in towards the mouth. Now that we have the basic shape of the head, let's go back and clean this up by erasing some of these guidelines. And this will give us a better look at our composition. And once we clean up our drawing, I'm going to add a second level of detail. So let's add a fold in between the brow. Starting from the bottom tip of the brow on the left, we're going to go up towards that center curve and bend that down. Now it's going to flatten off the top of the muzzle, going across and then down. Let's add that seam. Just continue that curve going up. Now I want to add a little bit more detail to the eye. So we're going to start with a curve across the front edge on the left. I'm just going to pull this around, then out towards a point on the top right, and just curve the bottom edge of the eye coming in. Just darken up that pupil. Now I just want to add a trim going around the eye and then in towards the brow. So we're just adding a thick edge going around the eye up towards the point. Just going to lightly shade the outside of the eye. Now from this brow, I'm just going to add some folds coming in toward that center curve. So these wrinkles in the eye. Now over on the left side, we're going to do the same thing, just bending these in. Let's add some shape to the nose. Just modifying the shape along the outside of that rough sketch. You can add in the nostrils and then darken those in. Let's add that center seam. Now along the outside perimeter, I'm just going to add some bumps going across those wrinkles. Just working within that bounding area. Modify the shape of the muzzle coming up and in toward that center point. Go back and just modify the shape of the head going up. Just going to add a little bit of a bumpy back across the neck. And then from here, just going to stretch the mouth, coming down the sides. And again, just adding a little bit more shape to the mouth. And I'm just going to pull this up in the middle. Let's add two large fangs, just pointing these out and back in. So these fangs are pointing out toward the left. And now in the middle of the mouth, we're going to add the tongue. Starting from the top, just going to stretch this down, round out the tongue, and then pull that back up. And we can also add a fold along the edge of the tongue. On the inside, add a seam across the center. Now we can go and start adding those large fangs. We're going to start with the top in the front, coming down and then in towards the bottom. So there's a slight bend about halfway, and then taper that back up towards the top. Let's add the back one, coming down. We're just following that same curve across the back, and go back up underneath. And we're going to add a row of smaller teeth in between. So these little points coming down the middle, in between those fangs. Let's add a couple more teeth along the side, and then along the bottom. Add a little bit more shape to the mouth. We're just going to bend this up and then in, just stretching the skin, going up across the jaw, going up along the outside. And we're just going to add a little bit of fur across the edge. Just these little zigzags coming out. So we're just brushing the fur coming down and out. And then from the ear, we're going to add that second layer. Now this fur is going to be longer. It's going to come down like a mane. Again, just brushing our pencil down, just working with the flow of the head. We also have that fur in the background. Just going to do the same thing. Now we're going to add some more shape to that ear, taking out that sharp point. Just wiggle the outside of the ear. And then add that trim or that fold on the inside. Now I'm going to go back again and do one final cleanup before we get into our detail paths and shading. Now we're just going to go and start darkening up our contours and the contrast. So starting back at the eyes, we just want to darken up the outer edge and also modifying the shape as we go. just going to pull the lower eyelid on top. I'm just going to add a point for the pupil. Now I want to add a glare going across at an angle, so I'm just going to lightly add a curve going across the middle. Now along the top, we're just going to add a little rectangle for a highlight. Let's darken up the top, going around that highlight, in towards the middle, and just going to fade that down. Let's darken up the pupil in the center. Now from here, it's going to darken up that outside trim, going around the eye. Also that fold going across the bottom. And I'm also going to apply some thick and thin lines. So adding some thicker lines around the shadow area. And this will help give our drawing some weight. And let's go back and just darken up that area around the eye. So with these folds, we're going to darken up the inside edge and just taper that out towards a point. Just layer on some more detail as we go. Now with the outside edge of the brow, I'm just going to add a little bit of fur texture, and we're just brushing this across, so brushing this back. So it feels a little bit more natural, just with these short lines going across that rough sketch and over towards the back. Now we're going to go back over towards the nose. Just start working around the perimeter of the nose. Again, just adding some more detail. You can see that we're adding some fur texture across the edge of the mouth, and then we're just going to stretch that skin coming down to the corner on the edge, coming down towards the bottom, and I'm just going to layer in those fangs. I want to switch to my thicker pencil, my 0.9mm, and start adding some contrast to those teeth. So again, going thicker along the top, so we get a little bit of weight, and then just tapering out towards a thinner line across the bottom. Now inside the ear, it's going to lengthen those hairs going across, and just brushing this around the inside. So we also create a little bit of shadow along the base of the ear. And I'm just going to rough in the detail around the neck. Not getting into too much detail here. Let's go back to the chin. Just layer that fur coming up and in. just going to lightly add that fur across the back side. And by going lighter, we just push this into towards the background, just keeping the contrast in the foreground elements. Now we're going to go with the side edge of our 2mm pencil and add a base layer of shadow. So in the areas that curve under, we're going to layer the shadows and then put the highlights across the top. So light's coming from the top, coming across. So you kind of have to guess where the shadows will be. And I always place the shadows along the bottom edge of each shape. So start across the bottom of the mouth. I'm going to push this into a shadow area and then just blend that up. Also want to put a little bit of shadow in between some of the creases. Start from the bottom of the nose and then fade that up. Starting with the back side of the mouth. Also pushing some of that shadow from the head onto the neck and fur area. So we're just softening up that texture of fur. Coming up from the jaw. I'm just going to add those stripes coming out from the center of the muzzle, going wider as it comes out, just also adding a little bit of curvature. Make it look a little bit more natural, and just fading that out towards the side. And a few spots coming in. And we're going to add a series of larger spots and stripes across the side of the jaw. Just pulling this down. Also adding some stripes coming across and in. Now these stripes are going to help us shape the head. So you can see that it's curved around by bending these out and then in. Now I'm going to go back and just darken up the inside of the mouth. I'm just going to go in and just add a final touch of details around the face. Just layering on top of our shadows. Now as we get closer to the end, I'm just going to tighten up our shadows and add some whiskers, and always be sure to sign our artwork, and that's pretty much it. There's a sketch illustration of a saber-toothed tiger. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you did, please be sure to subscribe for more videos each week where I'll show you how to draw different characters just like this. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.